stood at the edge of the training arena and tried to control his breathing. The orbital station Covenant Prime hung in the darkness of space like a metal flower, its petals spread wide to catch the light of 3 distant suns. Inside its walls, 30 cadets from 12 different worlds waited for their assessment to begin. Was one of only 6 humans in the group, and right now he felt every pair of alien eyes studying him like he was some kind of curious insect. The arena was a massive circular room with walls that could shift and change to create obstacles. Today it was set to open configuration, meaning there was nowhere to hide. Scanner pistols lined the weapon racks along the far wall. These training weapons fired harmless energy pulses that would register on a target's suit but cause no actual damage. The goal was simple: hit the moving targets, score points, prove you belonged here. Had trained for 2 years on Earth to earn his place at the Galactic Fleet Academy. His parents had sacrificed everything to give him this chance. His younger sister had cried when he left, making him promise to come back as a real fleet officer. He could not fail them. He would not fail them. Lena walked up beside him and bumped his shoulder with hers. She was from the same training class back on Earth, and her presence here was the only thing keeping from losing his mind completely. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her brown eyes were scanning the room with the same nervous energy felt in his own chest. She leaned close and whispered, "You see her yet?" Knew exactly who she meant. Everyone had been talking about Instructor since they arrived 3 days ago. The whispers said she had never been beaten in any physical test. The whispers said she could move faster than the eye could track. The whispers said she was not entirely natural, even by alien standards. "Not yet," whispered back. A door opened on the far side of the arena, and silence fell across the cadets like a heavy blanket. Commander Holt walked in first. He was the human liaison officer assigned to oversee their joint training program, a tall man with gray at his temples and the kind of calm authority that came from decades of service. Behind him came a figure that made breath catch in his throat. Was tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shift between pale blue and silver depending on how the light touched it. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of black water reflecting starlight. She moved with a grace that made walking look like dancing, each step perfectly balanced and controlled. She wore the standard instructor uniform, but somehow it looked like ceremonial armor on her frame. Commander Holt stopped in the center of the arena and cleared his throat. "Cadets, welcome to your first combat assessment. Today you will demonstrate your basic targeting skills with scanner pistols. Instructor will be observing and will provide a demonstration of advanced techniques. I expect full attention and complete respect. Begin warm-up exercises." The next hour was brutal. Ran through the standard drills, firing at holographic targets that appeared and disappeared at random intervals. His scores were acceptable but not impressive. The alien cadets around him seemed to move with natural advantages he could not match. The cadets had 4 arms and could fire 2 weapons simultaneously. The cadets had compound eyes that tracked movement in all directions. Even the other humans seemed faster and more confident than felt. By the time Commander Holt called for a break, was sweating and frustrated. He had worked so hard to get here, but hard work did not seem to matter when biology was against him. "Attention, cadets," Commander Holt announced. "Instructor will now demonstrate advanced evasion techniques. Observe carefully." Walked to the center of the arena and stood perfectly still. 5 automated turrets rose from the floor around her, each one programmed to fire scanner bolts at random intervals. Commander Holt activated the sequence and watched in disbelief as the turrets began firing. Moved like water flowing around stones. Each bolt that should have struck her found only empty air. She twisted and bent and spun, her body somehow always in the exact space where the energy was not. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely impossible. The turrets fired faster and faster, and still she danced between the bolts without a single hit registering on her suit. When the demonstration ended, the alien cadets applauded with various sounds and gestures. just stared. Something hot and bitter rose in his chest. It was not fair. How was anyone supposed to compete against something like that? Before he could stop himself, grabbed a scanner pistol from the rack beside him. He raised it and fired directly at. The bolt crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. It should have been too fast to see, let alone react to. But's hand came up and snatched the energy pulse right out of the air. The bolt crackled and died in her palm, absorbed into her skin like water into sand. She turned to look at, and a slow smile spread across her face. "Earthborn," she said, her voice carrying across the silent arena like music played on strange instruments. "Try again." The alien cadets burst into laughter, felt his face burn with humiliation as Commander Holt stormed toward him, fury in every step. Lena grabbed his arm and pulled him back, whispering urgent warnings about what he had just done, but barely heard any of it. His eyes were locked on that smirk that said she had seen 1,000 humans try and fail before him. She had caught a scanner bolt with her bare hand, not dodged it, caught it. How was that possible? What kind of creature could do something like that? Commander Holt was shouting now, something about discipline and protocols and consequences, nodded at the appropriate moments and accepted the punishment detail he was assigned. But his mind was already somewhere else, already picking apart what he had seen and trying to understand it. Lena found him later in the barracks, sitting on his bunk and staring at the wall. "That was stupid," she said. "Really, incredibly stupid." "I know. You could get sent home for something like that." "I know." She sat down beside him and sighed. "So what are you thinking?" Turned to look at her and something hard had settled in his eyes. "I am thinking about how she moved before I pulled the trigger, not when I pulled it, before, like she knew what I was going to do." Lena frowned. "That is impossible." "So is catching a scanner bolt with your hand," replied. "But she did it anyway. There has to be an explanation, Lena, and I am going to find it. Then I am going to try again." Lena shook her head slowly. "You are going to get yourself killed." Looked back at the wall, but now he was seeing something different. A puzzle, a challenge, a chance to prove that humans could surprise even the most impossible opponents. "Maybe," he said, "but I am going to try anyway." Spent the next 2 weeks watching every piece of footage he could find on. The Academy archives were open to cadets for study purposes, and told himself this counted as studying. He watched her training demonstrations from the past 5 years. He watched her sparring matches against senior officers. He watched her teaching movement classes to cadets who would never come close to matching her abilities. And slowly, he began to notice something strange. It was the timing that bothered him. In every single recording moved before her opponent acted, not at the same time, before. A fraction of a second, sometimes less, but always before. When a cadet raised a weapon, she was already shifting. When an officer threw a punch, she was already turning. It was like she could see the future, except did not believe in such things. He was sitting alone in the archive room at 3 in the morning, when someone spoke from the doorway behind him. "You are the one who shot at her." Spun around to find a tall human male leaning against the door frame. The man looked to be in his mid-20s, with short brown hair and the relaxed posture of someone who had long ago stopped caring what others thought of him. His uniform identified him as a senior cadet, 2 years ahead of class. "Who are you?" asked. "Dex Harmon," the man replied. He walked into the room and pulled up a chair beside. "I have been studying under instructor for 2 years now. When I heard some first-year human had actually fired at her during a demonstration, I had to come see for myself what kind of fool would do something like that." Felt his jaw tighten. "Are you here to laugh at me too?" Dex shook his head slowly. "No, I am here because I did the exact same thing when I was in your position. Shot at her on my 3rd day. She caught the bolt and told me to try again, just like she told you." Stared at him. "What happened after that?" "I became obsessed," Dex admitted. Spent months trying to figure out how she does it, talked to every on the station, read every paper I could find on her species. Eventually, I learned the truth, and I realized I could never beat her. Nobody can. What is the truth? Dex leaned back in his chair and studied for a long moment. She is. Do you know what that means? Shook his head. He had never heard the name before. They are one of the oldest species in the galaxy, Dex explained. They evolved on a world where predators hunted by bioelectric signature. Every living creature generates tiny electrical fields through their nervous system. They developed the ability to read those fields, to sense them. Felt something cold settle in his stomach. What does that mean exactly? It means she can feel your intentions before you act on them. When you decide to fire a weapon, your brain sends electrical signals to your muscles. Those signals travel through your nerves, and they generate a tiny electromagnetic field. Can read that field. She knows you are going to fire before your finger actually moves. Sat back, his mind racing. So she is not reacting to what I do. She is reacting to what I am about to do. Exactly, Dex confirmed. By the time your body actually moves, she has already seen the future in your nervous system. No amount of speed or accuracy matters. No amount of practice or training matters. She will always know what you are going to do before you do it. That is cheating, said, though he knew how foolish the words sounded. Dex laughed. It is biology. Humans have eyes, birds have wings. They have precognitive empathy. Every species has its advantages. Turned back to the screens showing footage of in combat. Now that he knew what to look for, he could see it clearly. She was not reacting to attacks. She was reacting to intentions. The moment someone decided to strike, she was already moving to counter. So what did you do, asked, after you learned this? Dex shrugged. I accepted it, focused on other aspects of my training. There is no shame in losing to someone who literally cannot be beaten by conventional means. Dozens of cadets have tried over the years. Humans, even a few with their enhanced speed. Nobody has ever landed a clean hit on her. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, what if I could think one thing and do another? Dex frowned. What do you mean? You said she reads intentions, electrical signals in the nervous system. What if I could make my brain send the wrong signals? Think about firing left while actually firing right. Dex laughed again, but this time there was something else in his voice, something that might have been respect. That is not how brains work. Intention and action are connected. You cannot separate them. Human brains can, said slowly, the idea forming even as he spoke. We evolved with conflicting instincts, fight or flight, love and fear. Our ancestors had to override their instincts constantly just to survive. What if that means we can lie to ourselves better than other species can? Dex stared at him. That is the craziest thing I have ever heard. Maybe, admitted, but I need to find out. He stood up and walked out of the archive room, his mind already planning his next steps. Behind him, Dex Harmon sat alone among the glowing screens and wondered if he had just witnessed the beginning of something remarkable or the final descent of a fool. Found Lena at breakfast the next morning and told her everything he had learned. She listened carefully, her expression shifting from skepticism to concern to something that might have been curiosity. So your plan is to learn how to lie to your own nervous system, she summarized. Yes. And you think humans can do this because we evolved with conflicting instincts? Yes. And no one has ever tried this before. Probably not. Lena sipped her coffee and looked at him over the rim of her cup. You know this sounds completely insane, right? Smiled. It was the first real smile he had managed in weeks. I know. That is why it might actually work. He spent the next month training in ways no one at the academy had ever seen. He practiced firing while thinking about not firing. He practiced moving left while his mind screamed right. He worked with Doctor, a fleet medical officer who specialized in comparative xenobiology, and learned everything he could about how human neurology differed from other species. It is called cognitive override, Doctor explained during one of their sessions. Most species have very clean neural pathways. Intention flows directly to action, but humans evolved in an environment of constant internal conflict. We had to learn to suppress instincts, delay gratification, act against our own desires. Our brains are messy and contradictory, and that mess gives us unusual flexibility. Practiced for hours every day, teaching himself to generate false signals in his own mind. It was exhausting and painful and strange. He had to essentially become two people at once, one who intended and one who acted. Most days he failed completely. But slowly, gradually, he began to feel something shift. He did not know if it would be enough. He did not know if any of this would work against a being who could read the future in his nervous system. But he was going to find out. The medical bay on Covenant Prime was a quiet place filled with soft light and humming machines. Had been coming here every evening for the past 3 weeks, working with Doctor on understanding his own brain better than he had ever thought possible. Tonight she had connected sensors to his scalp that measured the electrical activity of his thoughts and watched his own intentions flicker across a holographic display like lightning in a bottle. "There," Doctor said, pointing at a spike in the readings. "That was you deciding to lift your right hand. Do you see how the signal appears before your hand actually moves?" Nodded. The delay was tiny, maybe a tenth of a second, but it was real. His brain made the decision before his body carried it out. That gap was where lived. That was the space she exploited to seem impossibly fast. "Now try again," Doctor instructed. "But this time, I want you to think about lifting your left hand while actually lifting your right." Focused, he pictured his left hand rising, felt the intention in his mind as clearly as he could. Then, fighting against every instinct in his body, he lifted his right hand instead. The display flickered strangely. 2 signals appeared, overlapping and contradicting each other. Doctor leaned forward with interest. "Fascinating," she murmured. "You are generating conflicting electromagnetic signatures. I have never seen a human brain do this intentionally before." "Is it working?" asked. "In a sense. You are producing neural noise. A reading your intentions would receive mixed signals. The question is whether the noise is strong enough to mask your true intention." Stared at the display and felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. How do I make it stronger? Doctor sat back and considered the question. You need to understand something about human evolution. Most intelligent species developed in relatively stable environments. Their brains optimized for efficiency. Clear signals, direct pathways, minimal internal conflict. Humans are different. Your ancestors evolved in chaos. She pulled up a new display showing brain scans from multiple species. "Look at this. A brain processes a decision through a single pathway. A brain uses parallel processing but still maintains clear signal separation. But a human brain," she pointed at the image of a human neural map. "It is a mess, competing signals, redundant pathways, constant internal debate. Your species literally argues with itself on a neurological level." "That sounds like a weakness," said. "Most species think it is," Doctor agreed. "Humans are seen as slow and indecisive compared to more streamlined minds. But what the galaxy has not considered is that this internal conflict gives you something no other species has. The ability to genuinely think one thing while doing another, to deceive not just others but yourselves." Felt the weight of her words settle over him. His entire life, he had been told that humans were average, not the strongest, not the fastest, not just a young species from a small planet trying to find their place among civilizations millions of years older. But what if the very thing that made humans seem weak was actually a hidden strength? "Teach me," he said. "Teach me how to use this." Over the following weeks, Doctor put through exercises that pushed his mind to its limits. He practiced generating false intentions while performing simple actions. He learned to flood his thoughts with contradictory signals, creating a storm of electromagnetic noise that masked his true goals. He discovered that strong emotions made the deception easier, so he learned to feel things intensely while acting calmly. It was like learning to be two people at once. One planned and intended and desired. The other acted and moved and fired. The trick was keeping them separate while letting them share the same body. Lena visited him in the training room one night and found him standing alone, firing at targets while muttering under his breath. His shots were erratic at first, missing wildly, but then something would click and he would land 3 perfect hits in a row. "How do you know this will work against her?" Lena asked. Lowered his weapon and wiped sweat from his forehead. "I do not know. I can generate the noise. I can feel my own thoughts splitting and contradicting, but I have no way to test it against an actual until I face her." "That is a big risk." "I know." Lena walked over to the target display and studied his scores. They were strange. Some attempts were worse than his baseline performance, but others were significantly better. It was as if he was becoming either much worse or much better, with nothing in between. "What happens in your head when you do this?" she asked. Thought about how to explain it. Imagine you are going to throw a ball. Normally your brain just thinks about throwing and your arm does it. Simple. But what I am doing is thinking about catching while throwing, planning to step left while stepping right. It is like having an argument with yourself about what you are going to do next, except both sides of the argument are real. That sounds exhausting. It is, admitted, but I am getting better at it. The noise is becoming easier to generate, and when it works, something interesting happens. "What?" Raised his weapon again and pointed it at a target across the room. "My conscious mind thinks about missing. It plans to hit the target on the left. It commits completely to that intention. But somewhere deeper in a part of my brain that does not send the same kind of signals, I know where I am really aiming. And when I fire..." He squeezed the trigger and the bolt struck the center target perfectly. "My body does what it actually needs to do, regardless of what my conscious mind was planning." Lena stared at the smoking target. "You are learning to bypass your own intentions." "I am learning to weaponize human confusion," corrected. "Doctor says our brains are messy because we evolved in chaos. We had to override our instincts constantly. Run toward danger instead of away. Share food instead of hoarding it. Trust strangers instead of attacking them. Every moment of human evolution required us to act against our own nature. And now you are using that against someone who reads nature." Nodded. "See what we intend to do. But humans are the only species that regularly intends one thing and does another. We lie to ourselves more than any other creature in the galaxy. That is our advantage." A soft sound came from the doorway and spun to find standing there. He had no idea how long she had been watching. Her dark eyes studied him with an expression he could not read, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. Then turned and walked away without a word. Lena let out a breath she had been holding. Do you think she heard all of that? Watched the empty doorway where the instructor had disappeared. Yes. Is that bad? Thought about it. Knew what he was trying to do now. She knew his plan. But knowing about human neural noise and being able to counter it were two different things. They had evolved their ability over millions of years. They had never needed to adapt to creatures who could deceive their own nervous systems. "I do not think it matters," finally said. "Either this works or it does not, but I am going to try." The quarterly assessment was 1 week away. Had 7 days to master the impossible art of lying to himself so completely that even a mind reader could not see the truth. He got back to work. The main training arena was packed with cadets from every species in the fleet. Word had spread that the human who had shot at instructor was going to try again, and nobody wanted to miss what promised to be either an impressive display of courage or an embarrassing demonstration of human foolishness. Suspected most of them were betting on the second option. He stood at the edge of the arena, wearing his standard training suit and carrying a single scanner pistol. His hands were steady. His breathing was calm. Inside his head, a storm of contradictory thoughts crashed against each other like waves in a hurricane, but on the outside he showed nothing. Lena stood behind him in the crowd, her face pale with worry. Dex Harmon had found a spot near the front, watching with the curiosity of someone who had walked this same path years ago and failed. Commander Holt stood beside the main entrance, his expression suggesting he expected to be writing disciplinary reports before the hour was done. And in the center of the arena waited. She looked exactly as she had on that first day, tall and graceful with skin that shifted between blue and silver. Her dark eyes tracked as he walked forward to take his position. There was no smile on her face today, no smirk, just patient attention, like a teacher waiting to see what her student had learned. Commander Holt stepped forward and addressed the crowd. Cadet has formally requested a direct challenge against instructor. Under Academy rules, any cadet may request such a challenge once per quarter. The terms are simple. Land one clean scanner bolt on the instructor. Cadet, instructor, are you ready? Ready, said. Simply nodded. Commander Holt raised his hand. Begin. Did not fire immediately. He stood still and let his mind do what he had trained it to do. He thought about shooting left. He felt the intention fully, committed to it completely, let the electromagnetic signature of that decision flow through his nervous system. At the same time, somewhere deeper in his brain where conscious thought could not easily reach, he knew he would actually shoot right. Tilted her head slightly. It was a tiny movement, almost invisible, but caught it. She was reading his intentions, and for the first time she was confused by what she found. Fired right. Dodged, but her movement was strange. She had started to shift left, anticipating the shot her senses told her was coming, then tried to correct when the actual bolt came from a different angle. She avoided the hit, but just barely. A murmur ran through the crowd. Nobody had ever seen instructor move awkwardly before. Did not pause to celebrate. He was already thinking again, flooding his mind with false signals. This time he committed to shooting high while actually aiming low. He pictured the bolt striking the ceiling. He felt the intention to fire upward as completely as he had ever felt anything. He shot at her feet. Jumped, but again her timing was off. She had been preparing to duck based on what his nervous system was telling her. The bolt passed close enough that the sensors on her suit flickered, detecting proximity if not direct contact. Now the crowd was truly buzzing. Something unprecedented was happening. A first-year human cadet was actually challenging the unbeatable instructor, and he was coming closer than anyone had in decades. Felt sweat forming on his forehead. The mental effort required to maintain this deception was enormous. His brain wanted to think clearly, to let intention and action align naturally. Fighting against that instinct was like holding his breath underwater. He could do it, but not forever. He had to end this quickly. For his third shot did something he had never tried before. Instead of generating one false intention, he generated dozens. His mind became a chaotic mess of contradictory signals. Shoot left, shoot right, shoot high, shoot low, do not shoot at all, fire everything at once. He threw every conflicting thought he could manage into his nervous system until he could barely think straight himself. Then, from somewhere beneath all that noise, his body did what it actually needed to do. He fired at center mass. Moved, she had to move. Her entire being was built to react to intentions she could sense, and right now she was sensing everything and nothing at the same time. She twisted left, then right, then tried to spin away from a shot that was not going where any of his thoughts said it should go. The bolt caught her on the shoulder. The arena went silent. The scoring display above flickered and confirmed what everyone had just witnessed. Partial hit, contact registered, points awarded. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the alien cadets who had spent their lives believing they were untouchable just stared in shock at what had happened. Looked down at her shoulder where the bolt had grazed her. Then she looked up at. Her expression was impossible to read at first. Then slowly something changed in her dark eyes. Not anger, not frustration. Something that looked almost like wonder. "How?" she asked. Her voice was quiet enough that only could hear. "Human brains are messy," said, breathing hard from the mental effort. "We think one thing and do another, all the time, every day. It is how we survived. We lie to ourselves better than any species in the galaxy." Continued to stare at him. Then she did something nobody expected. She smiled. Not a smirk, not the confident expression of a superior being looking down at a lesser creature. A real smile, filled with genuine pleasure and surprise. She turned to address the assembled cadets, her voice now carrying to every corner of the arena. "In 40 years of instruction, no one has ever landed a hit on me. Not once. Today, a first-year human cadet from Earth has done what warriors and champions from across the galaxy could not." The crowd erupted. Some were cheering, others were shouting questions, and many were simply trying to process what they had just witnessed. Commander Holt looked like he was not sure whether to be proud or concerned. Raised her hand for silence, and the room obeyed instantly. For years, humans have been considered predictable by the. Your neural chaos was seen as a weakness. Your conflicting instincts were viewed as inefficiency. Today, Cadet has proven that chaos can be weaponized, that weakness can become strength, that the very thing we dismissed was the one thing we could not predict. She walked toward, her movements once again perfectly graceful now that she was not trying to dodge unpredictable attacks. She stopped directly in front of him and studied his face like she was seeing him for the first time. "You have surprised me, Earthborn," she said. "That is a gift no one has given me in a very long time." Was too exhausted to respond with anything clever. He just nodded and tried to keep standing on legs that wanted to collapse. Leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for him. "This is not over. You have shown me something new. Now I want to see how far you can take it." She stepped back and addressed the crowd once more. "The assessment is complete. Cadet has demonstrated exceptional innovation under pressure. All cadets are dismissed." As the arena began to empty, Lena rushed to his side and grabbed his arm to keep him upright. Dex Harmon was not far behind, his expression a mixture of disbelief and respect. "You actually did it," Lena breathed. "You actually hit her." Managed a weak smile. "Only a partial hit." "Only a partial hit," Dex repeated with a laugh. "That partial hit is more than anyone else has ever managed. You just changed everything. You know that, right?" Looked across the arena to where was speaking quietly with Commander Holt. As if she could feel his gaze, she turned and met his eyes. That smile was still on her face, and now could read the promise in it. This was just the beginning. The day after the challenge, was summoned to a private meeting room in the administrative section of Covenant Prime. He had spent the night recovering from the mental exhaustion of his fight with, and his head still ached from the effort of lying to himself so completely. But when Commander Holt personally delivers a summons, you do not ask for more rest time. The meeting room was small and comfortable, with soft lighting and chairs that adjusted to fit any species. Found already waiting inside, along with Commander Holt and a holographic display that currently showed only static. Lena was not there, and felt her absence like a missing limb. "Sit down, Cadet," Commander Holt said. His tone was neutral, neither angry nor pleased, and could not tell if he was about to be rewarded or punished. Zed spoke first. "I have been an instructor at this academy for 40 years. In that time, I have trained thousands of cadets from hundreds of species. Do you know why I chose this profession?" Shook his head. "Because they are dying," said simply. "Not physically. Our bodies are healthy and our population is stable, But we are dying as a people because nothing surprises us anymore. When you can sense the intentions of every creature you meet, when you can predict every attack and anticipate every conversation, life becomes a series of known outcomes. It is peaceful, it is safe, and it is slowly driving us insane. She leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. 200 years ago, they joined the Galactic Fleet for one reason. We were looking for someone who could surprise us, someone whose intentions we could not read. We have tested ourselves against warriors and scholars, predators and prey, beings of pure energy and creatures of living stone. None of them could do what you did yesterday. Felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. Why not? Because every species in the galaxy thinks clearly, explained. Their intentions match their actions. Even when they try to deceive, their attempts are logical and predictable. But humans, she smiled that strange, genuine smile again. Humans are chaos wrapped in flesh. You think one thing, feel another, and do something completely different. Your brains are battlefields where instinct and reason and emotion fight constantly. And somehow, impossibly, you function anyway. Commander Holt cleared his throat. What instructor is trying to say is that your performance yesterday has attracted attention at the highest levels of fleet command. The holographic display flickered to life, and found himself looking at the face of an older woman with silver hair and the insignia of a fleet admiral on her collar. Her name appeared beneath her image, Admiral Price. "Cadet," the admiral said. Her voice was crisp and direct. "I have reviewed the footage of your challenge against Instructor. I have also reviewed the reports from Doctor regarding your training methods. What you have discovered may be the most significant tactical development in human history." Opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Admiral Price continued. "For centuries, humans have struggled to find their place in the galactic community. We are not the strongest or the fastest. We lack the natural advantages that other species evolved over millions of years. But what you have demonstrated suggests that our supposed weakness, our chaotic neural structure, may actually be our greatest strength. They are not the only species with predictive abilities," added. "There are others who read intentions, sense emotions, or anticipate actions through various biological mechanisms. Against all of them, human unpredictability could be a decisive advantage." Admiral Price nodded. "Which is why I am offering you a position in Fleet Special Tactics, Cadet. It is a unit designed for unconventional warfare, situations where standard approaches fail. You would be trained by Instructor personally and given access to resources that most officers never see." Finally found his voice. "Why me? I am just a first-year cadet. There must be more qualified humans who could do this." "Perhaps," said, "but you are the one who figured it out. You are the one who refused to accept that you could not win. Every other human who tried to challenge me eventually gave up and accepted defeat. You spent months teaching yourself to think in ways that should be impossible. That combination of stubbornness and creativity is exactly what the fleet needs." Commander Holt spoke again. "You do not have to decide immediately, Cadet. This is a significant opportunity, but it comes with significant risks. Special tactics operations are dangerous and often classified. Your family would not be able to know what you are doing." Thought about his parents back on Earth, about his sister who had made him promise to come home as an officer. They wanted him to be safe and successful. They wanted him to make them proud. Would they understand if he told them he was joining a secret unit to fight enemies using nothing but the chaos inside his own head? He thought about Lena, who had stood by him through all of this, who had believed in him even when his ideas sounded crazy. "Can I request that someone join me?" asked. Admiral Price raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "Lena. She is a cadet in my class. She helped me develop my techniques, kept me focused when I wanted to give up. If I am going to do this, I want her with me." And Commander Holt exchanged a look. The Admiral was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Cadet will be evaluated. If she meets the requirements, your request will be considered. Is that acceptable? Felt something warm spread through his chest. Yes, Admiral, that is acceptable. Then welcome to Special Tactics, Cadet. The Admiral's expression softened just slightly. You have shown the galaxy something new today. A human who can lie to himself so convincingly that even a mind reader cannot see the truth. That is a weapon nobody expected, and it changes everything. Do not waste this opportunity. The holographic display went dark. Stood and walked over to. She held out her hand, and when looked down, he saw she was holding a new scanner pistol. It was sleek and advanced, clearly not standard training equipment. This is yours now, she said. Consider it a gift from a who had given up hope of ever being surprised again. You gave me something precious yesterday, Earthborn. I intend to return the favor. Took the pistol. It felt right in his hand, balanced and powerful. Now, continued, that smile returning to her face. Show me what else your chaotic little mind can do. Raised the weapon and let his thoughts scatter into beautiful, unpredictable lies. He thought about surrender while preparing to attack. He felt peace while planning war. His brain became a storm of contradictions, and somewhere in the center of that storm, he found perfect clarity. He did not know what the future held. He did not know what enemies he would face or what challenges awaited him. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humans had spent their entire existence fighting against their own nature, against instincts that demanded selfishness and fear and violence, against brains that could not decide what they wanted from one moment to the next. That internal war had made them seem weak and confused to the rest of the galaxy. But wars shape warriors, and humans had been at war with themselves since the first one walked upright on the plains of ancient Earth. Smiled and prepared to show the galaxy what a species born in chaos could do. They had been looking for someone who could surprise them. They had finally found what they were looking for.